Welcome back. We're in lesson 73 and we're going to talk a little bit more about radical denominators. When we were in lesson 67, we learned to eliminate radicals in the denominator when we have an expression by using the conjugate, and the conjugate is just the opposite sign within the expression. So for instance, if we had this expression here, 2 minus 3 times the square root of 2, we would multiply by the conjugate, which is 2 plus 3 times the square root of 2. Notice the sign changed here, and we do it on the top and the bottom. All right, and we know that that would remain the same. Let's see what this would be. So let's set this up in stacking. I like to use stacking for this because it helps keep it all straight in my head. You could use distribution, and technically we are using distribution when we stack. It's just a little bit more organized, and you can see it a little bit more clearly. So we're going to start with this number and multiply this number and then this number. So a positive 3 times the square root of 2, a positive 3 times a negative 3, that's going to be a negative 9, right? Negative 9. And then we have a square root of 2 times square root of 2, so that's going to be a 2. So negative 9 times 2 is a negative 18 for that. Okay, so now positive 3 times 2 times the square root of 2 is going to be a positive 6 times the square root of 2. Positive 2 times the negative 3 times the square root of 2 is going to be negative 6 times the square root of 2. And a positive 2 times a positive 2 is a positive 4. These two cancel, so we have a negative 14. Okay, this is negative 14. We don't like to have negatives in our denominator, so we would turn that into a negative 2 minus 3 times the square root of 2 over positive 14, right? We just took the negative and multiplied. We took that factor and multiplied up here. We changed the signs. All right, that is our answer. So let's move on and do a practice problem. Let's do 73.1. And it is a little bit more complex. We have 4 plus square root of 3 on top. And then we have 2 minus 3 times the square root of 3 on the bottom. So we're going to multiply by the conjugate, which is a positive 2 plus 3 times the square root of 3 over 2 plus 3 times the square root of 3. So we're going to do both of these. Now, because these are both complicated expressions, we're going to do the top and the bottom through stacking. So 4 plus the square root of 3 and 2 plus 3 times the square root of 3. Okay. Now, 3 times the square root of 3, that's going to be 3. So 3 times 3 is 9, and it's positive. All right, this time, 3 times 4, that's 12 times the square root of 3. That's going to be 2 times the square root of 3, and this is going to be 8. So this is going to be 17, and this is going to be 14 and the square root of 3. All right, now we know that we technically write the radical last. So 17 plus 14 times the square root of 3 is the way we typically write that, because we like to put the radicals on the back end of our statement. Just that's what we like. It's just convention. It's what they like to do. Either way is technically correct, but the convention is to put it on the end. So now we have 2 plus 3 times the square root of 3 and 2 minus 3 times the square root of 3. It doesn't matter which one you put on top or the bottom, you're going to get the same answer. All right, so negative 3 times positive 3, that's negative 9. Square root of 3 is square root of 3, that's going to be times 3. So we got a negative 27 happening right there. Negative 3 times 2, that's going to be a negative 6 times the square root of 3. Positive, positive, that's going to be a positive 6 times the square root of 3. 2 times 2, that's going to be a positive 4. These cancel. This is a negative 23. negative 23. We don't like to have negatives in our denominator, so it's a negative 17 minus 14 times the square root of 3 over 23. All right. Very good. So let's do another one. Let's do 73.2. All right, so let's do, it's 4 minus 2, square root of 2 over 4 plus 3 times the square root of 2. The conjugate is what? Come on, you can say it. Right. 4 minus 3 times the square root of 2. Very good. For whoever said that, I didn't actually hear you. Miss Tracy was just kind of pulling your leg. I can't actually hear you through the video. Just, for the record. But we can move on. So the top part is going to be 4 minus the square root of 2. And this is 4 minus 3 times the square root of 2. Let's do this one first. Remember, when you have a negative, we treat this like a variable, so we're going to slide that 1 right in there. Negative and a negative is a positive, so that is a positive 3. Positive 3, and 2 square root of 2 times square root of 2 is 2, so it's going to be 3 times 2, so that's going to be 6. All right, negative 3 times 4 is a negative 12 times the square root of 2. And notice I swap sides. It doesn't matter which side you write it on as long as you write the same thing in the same column. So you can combine them. And I decided that since the convention is that we put the radical on the right or at the end of our expression, to just do that from the beginning so it's less confusing. Okay, so, plus it's already on this side, so why not? All right, so now I'm going to say 4 times the negative 1. That's going to be a negative 4 times the square root of 2. And 4 times 4 is 16. That's going to be a negative 16 times the square root of 2. And this is going to be a 22. All right, so the top number is 22 minus 16 times the square root of 2. Over, let's do the bottom. Let me give myself some room here. All right, so we have 4 plus 3 times the square root of 2 and 4 minus 3 times the square root of 2. So we have a negative 9 times 2. That's going to be a negative, let's do it over here. Put my whole numbers over here. Negative 18. And then this is going to be a negative 12 times the square root of 2, because negative 3 times 4, and then that's just the variable that tags along. 4 times 3, that's going to be a positive 12 times the square root of 2, and then that's going to be a positive 16, so we have a negative 2 because these cancel. So this is a negative 2. Remember, we don't do negatives in the denominator, so we swap the signs. So it's going to be a negative 22 plus 16 times the square root of 2 over 2. Something else that we can look at is that this is divisible. Both of these are divisible by 2. So this is a negative 11 plus 8 times the square root of 2 is the answer. So we were able to take it out of a fractional form. Very good. Y'all are so smart. Let's move on to 73.3 and then we'll be done with this lesson. How about that? Let's clear the page. 73.3. So again, we have a complicated, this one has radicals in both numbers. Wow. All right, so that's going to be fun to figure out. Let's do, and this one is 3 times the square root of 3 minus 2 times the square root of 2. All right, so the conjugate is, I need a volunteer from the audience to tell me what the conjugate is. Just text me right now. First one to text me the conjugate for this lesson, I'm going to give you an extra bonus point. All right, I'm going to be looking for that. Okay, so yes, you're correct. It is 3 times the square root of 3 plus 2 times the square root of 2. I'll tell you who that was that sent it to me in class on Thursday when I see you. All right, now let's do the top. And here's what I want you guys to do. I want you to go ahead and pause the video and solve this one yourself, and then press play and see what the answer is, okay? Why don't you do that for me now? Just pause the video and then come back and see if you got the same answer that I did. Remember, I'm checking mine by the answer book, so it's probably going to be right. Okay. All right, my dears, if you got 36 plus 8 times the square root of 6 over 19, then you got the right answer. So what we did was we set up our top and our bottom, right, with what we have here. These are our top numbers. These are our bottom numbers. So we lined them up. This is going to be negative 4 times the square root of 6, which is here. Then we had 6 times the square root of 24, which is here, which we were able to reduce. We were able to pull this out and say 24 is 4 times 6. So the square root of 4 is 2. So that'd be 2 times the square root of 6 is what this 24 is. So 6 times 2 is 12 times the square root of 6. All right, and then we were able to say that 3 times negative 2 is negative 6, and negative square root of 3 times square root of 3 is 3, so negative 6 times 3 is a negative 18. And then 3 times 3 is 9, and 3 times 12 is 36. Well, that's a perfect square. Square root of 36 is 6, so 9 times 6 is 54. So we ended up with 54 minus 18, which is 36, and positive 12 times the square root of 6 minus 4 times the square root of 6. So that's going to be a positive 8 times the square root of 6. Now over here, this is the bottom, and what typically happened here. We got a positive and a negative. 6 times the square root of 6, so those canceled. But with this one, we had a negative 4 times 2, which is negative 8. And we had 9 times 3, which would give us 27. When those were combined, we got a positive 19 in our denominator. And that is how we got our answer. And that is all we have for lesson 73. If you have any questions, let me know. And I'll see you in lesson 74.